Habermas Insight. I'm Charlie Sykes. Sunday Insight starts right now. Good morning and welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, high theater, high drama, and an unexpected choice. The Catholic Church has a new pope, Francis, the first Jesuit, the first pope from the New World, the first non-European pope in a millennium. Back home, the news was more mundane. Sinkholes are becoming a problem on the south side. The Government Accountability Board defends its decision not to update voter rolls. Paul Ryan unveils a Republican budget that balances the federal budget in 10 years. President Obama gives an interview and says his budget won't balance ever. The White House tours are still shut down, but we found out this week that it still has 3 official calligraphers on staff at an annual cost of taxpayers of $277,000. Now, this is why your teacher told you to pay attention to good penmanship. Governor Scott Walker signs the mining bill. Opponents threaten lawsuits, of course. The Big Ten tournament starts, which means that March Madness can't be far behind. And the Packers, for some reason, failed to sign Steven Jackson. I'm bitter about that. But we start this morning with the historic scene in Vatican City. The frontrunners and chose a 76-year-old cardinal from Argentina, Jorge Bergoglio, who took the name Pope Francis. The new pope is known for his humility, his concern for the poor, his emphasis on evangelism, and his strong conservatism on matters of doctrine. Observers who were hoping for a cafeteria Catholic were probably disappointed, but others, including former Milwaukee Archbishop Timothy Dolan, praised the choice.
In fact, the Holy Father, Pope Francis, said to us tonight, "I'm going to sleep well, and something tells me you will too." And we will. We'll sleep well tonight, knowing that the church is in good hands.
Now, joining me on our panel this morning, political strategist Linda Bruin, another political strategist, Mary Jo Boss, blogger Alex Runner, and media trackers Brian Sikma. So, Alex, since you're the first-timer here, what struck you most about the choice of the Pope?
It struck me that he was a Jesuit. The Jesuits, for so long, were on the outs from the Catholic Church, weren't even allowed into the Vatican, and I think for those of us who love Marquette University and Jesuit institutions and their higher learning, I think that this was a strong statement. Okay,
were you surprised, Brian, by the fact that a lot of people had thought that it might be a non-European, but I think people were looking for a younger pope. So you got a guy 76 years old, he's got one lung. Were you surprised by that?
Not really. I think they're looking for some measure of stability. That, of course, they've gone through, the previous pope had a very short term and stepped down. I think they're looking for someone who could navigate the waters that the Catholic Church is going through right now. And this was a gentleman who navigated those waters in Argentina, where he was not always liked by the government. So he seems to have both a concern for the poor as well as a political savvy that would seem to stand strong on traditional Catholic principles.
Okay, it seems that both liberals and conservatives are trying to stake claim to the Pope, obviously choosing Francis, patron saint of, concerned about the poor, very, very humble guy. So you have people who are saying he is going to lean left on economic issues, that he has been critical of the International Monetary Fund. On the other hand, he is quite conservative on social issues. So how do you break this down?
Well, to me, that says he's the traditional pope. Most historically, popes tend to be conservative on social issues, abortion, contraception, just like this pope, but more liberal on financial matters, helping the poor. And so to me, he fits very well into that. And I also think another wonderful point about him is he is so humble and so authentic. I think he actually stands a good chance of helping restore the credibility of the Catholic Church that has been tarnished in recent years.
Mary Jo, we speculated a lot about the possibility of Cardinal Timothy Dolan being one of the front runners, and obviously a lot of that speculation was wrong. Were we completely at sea on all of that? Was it ever a possibility that he was going to be named Pope?
I don't think so. I think he is on the younger side, and I think he needs some additional depth. But I think Pope Francis will help with the administration, getting the Vatican's house in order. He has the strong administrative skills, the evangelical skills. He is conservative. I think he will bring, as was said before, some stability and get the church's house in order in the time he has.
Now, there were a lot of people who have been saying that the church needs to modernize itself, that they need to appeal in a different way, change its message. Do you think you're going to get any of this from the new pope?
I think just the fact that he's from Buenos Aires, he's from Argentina. I think Latin America is such a huge Catholic bastion. Modernization, I don't know if they mean liberalizing or changing doctrine.
I think that's what they usually mean.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Well, you know, I mean, you mentioned this before, that he was a traditional pope. I mean, the reality is he's Catholic.
Right.
And it's interesting how a lot of the media commentary seems to be surprised to find out that the Pope will be Catholic, that he's going to be pro-life, that he's going to have traditional views on marriage, he's going to have traditional views on homosexuality. I think the thing that people haven't really picked up on, or maybe haven't grasped, because we see this through, we in the media, see this through a secular lens. But as you read things like George Weigel, who's been a biographer of the Pope, has written, this new Pope is very interested in evangelization, by which he means, you know, changing the face of the church, reaching out to people who are Catholics who may have fallen off. And in Argentina, it's a very Catholic country. You have about 2/3 of the population is Catholic, but only about 10% of the population actually attends church. So I think one of the things that he's going to do is he's not going to modernize the message, but he is going to have more of the outreach of, you know, preaching the gospel, which, you know.
I think he's going to restore the church. That doesn't mean necessarily modernize it, but restore it. I think he's going to be very beloved by the people, and I think that will help bring the evangelism and the attendance back, because you know, one of the first things he did when he walked out on the balcony, he asked the 175,000 people to bless him first, and he refused to get on a platform that would have elevated him higher than the other cardinals, neither of which had been done before. That sends a huge message.
I think it does as well, and leading by example. Okay, so it's St. Patrick's Day. What has your glass half full, and what has your glass half empty? Let's go around the table. Linda Bruin.
Well, it's half full because last week scientists announced that they created a telescope that can see back to the beginning of time, which sounds fabulous. But they also said the same telescope will find alien life if it exists. And a word of caution for me there, which makes my glass half empty. Sometimes you have to be careful what you look for because you just might find it.
Mary Jo Boss.
Well, my glass is half empty because I would have loved to see a Pope Dolan. My glass is half full because with Pope Francis, it gives him a few more years to brush up on his Italian and Latin.
Alex Runner.
My glass is half full because Chris Abley, Scott Walker, and Mary Barrett all came together for a vital infrastructure project that will help our lakefront. It's half empty because some people still suffer from rail derangement syndrome, where anything with tracks they'll combat.
Brian Sickma.
Well, my glass is half full today because as we continue to debate the state budget here in Wisconsin, it's a balanced budget. It's a budget that makes sense, but it's half empty because it includes $3.7 million earmarked to preserve circus wagons in Baraboo, Wisconsin. You got to ask why that's in the budget sometimes.
Well, my glass is half empty because the appeals court did not lift the stay of that liberal Dane County judge's ruling against Act 10. It's half full because, as the Attorney General made clear on Friday, that ruling has no statewide implications. It doesn't apply to anybody who is not a specific plaintiff in that case. Next on Sunday, so in other words, there is no window. Anybody out there? Next on Sunday Insight, the important election in Wisconsin Supreme Court. And as we go to break, John Boehner plays hard to get with President Obama.
But this is going to take more than dinner dates and phone calls.
Well, it's quieter this time, but the stakes are just as high. In a little more than 2 weeks, voters will decide control of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Conservative incumbent Pat Roggensack faces a challenge from liberal law professor Ed Falone. Falone has criticized Roggensack for the dysfunction and divisions among her fellow justices, but last week, Falone found his own track record under fire, specifically his close ties with an ex-gang member. Back in 2001, while Falone was president of the Latin Center, the group's executive director was Modesto Fontanez, who was a founder of the Latin Kings gang in Milwaukee and was still on parole for a cocaine drug conviction. When this was reported, Falone expressed complete faith and confidence in Fontanez. When Fontanez's gang involvement prevented the center from receiving a $192,000 federal anti-crime grant and $75,000 in funding from the county for a new soccer complex, Falone again stood by Fontanez, saying, "I have every faith in him." And he resigned only after he got a 19-year-old client of the organization pregnant. Even then, Falone said he accepted the ex-gang leader's resignation with regret. Okay, Brian Sickma, how big a problem is this for Ed Falone?
This is a very big problem for Ed Falone, and the reason it becomes a very big problem is because Ed Falone has zero experience as a judge. We can't go back to any cases where he's been a circuit court judge, where he's handled criminal cases, civil cases, so we have to base it on his track record in the community. And here we have him repeatedly expressing faith in someone who had a criminal background, but not only did he try to give him a second chance, when the guy started messing up again, he still expressed faith in him. The people of Wisconsin have to know who's going to be their next Supreme Court justice, and we don't have a judicial track record to go back to for Ed Fallone.
Alex Runner.
I think it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, Republicans quite frequently nominate lawyers who don't have no judicial experience. Rebecca Bradley was nominated by Governor Walker. She's been great. I think this is
the state Supreme Court, though.
Right, state Supreme Court, but there are people who have sat in state Supreme Court without judicial background, and I think that this is the timing of it right before the election. I think it's a character assassination. I think it's trying to impugn his integrity by association. I mean, we have a governor that has, 3 staff members who are charged with federal crimes or charged with criminal activity. And I think you would probably say that Governor Walker shouldn't be associated with those crimes that they committed. I don't see why this is such a mark against Ed Fallone.
Okay, at a violent gang, the Latin King gang, the Tom Schneider, who was the Democratic U.S. attorney, felt so strongly about it. He said, "I'm not giving any crime money to an organization headed by a guy who was a founder of the Latin Kings." Wouldn't this go to the question of judgment, Mary Jo Boss?
Well, absolutely. This guy this isn't something that happened in his ignorant youth. This is now. He was still on parole. And if you have someone, say you decide for some reason to give him a second chance, you watch him very, very carefully. And this guy was obviously not watched.
Linda Bruin, we are 2 weeks out from this election, and I'm just not seeing a lot of buzz about this election. What is going on? Give handicap what's going on in this race.
I think this is an interesting discussion, and I agree that it is character assassination. If Scott Walker gets a free pass for 3 of his people going to prison, then this guy should get a free pass because of the board.
Right. Sending out emails, Latin King gang. It sounds completely. Yes, I get the parallel.
The bottom line, though, is
cocaine convictions.
It's completely
knocking up a 19-year-old.
It is completely irrelevant because Fallone, I hate to call the election before it happens, but the chances of Fallone winning this election are minuscule. So I don't think it's going to have any impact on the election. A lot of people don't know about it, and frankly, Rogensack is going to win the election.
The left understands that they're not going all in for Ed Fallone?
I think the left supports Ed Fallone strongly, but it's not going to make any difference in the election.
Okay, you may not want to hear it, but we're going to tell you anyway. Let's dish out some unsolicited advice. Linda Bruin, you're first. Wow. Okay.
Well, mine's for John Boehner, who announced last week that the Vatican had invited him to attend the installation of Pope Francis, but he turned it down because he had a prior scheduled meeting with President Obama. And I don't get it. As the ranking Catholic on Capitol Hill and a Republican, he chose Obama over the Pope. I wouldn't have done that.
The Messiah over the Pope. Mary Jo.
My advice is for the left liberals who are still trying to get Ed Fallone elected to the Supreme Court. This dog ain't going to hunt. Save your money for somebody who has a chance of winning.
Okay, Alex Runner.
My unsolicited advice is for MATC and Caterpillar. I hope they can work together despite pressure from the Steelworkers Union. 25 jobs. Caterpillar has non-union and union. There's a place for both of them.
Ooh. Ryan Sigma.
Well, my unsolicited advice is for President Barack Obama, who decided that because of the sequester, school children can't tour the White House, but we can still take millions of dollars in taxpayer money to study the effects of methamphetamine on monkeys. Let's get some priorities straight here.
Okay, my advice to all the folks in the media who are trying to figure out how to characterize the new pope, just try this. He's Catholic. Next on Sunday Insight, the soda ban fizzles. And as we go to break, New York Cardinal Timothy Dolan with a humorous story about what happened after the Cardinals selected the new pope.
We toasted him, the Cardinal Secretary of State toasted him, and then he toasted us, and he simply said, "May God forgive you."
A setback for the nanny state. New York City's ban on big sugary sodas was supposed to have gone into effect this past week, but a judge threw it out, calling Mayor Michael Bloomberg's attempt to ban the big gulp arbitrary and capricious. Bloomberg vowed to appeal, saying the soda ban was part of his efforts to make residents healthier and to protect them from obesity. So let's just talk about the larger issue of nannyism. Mary Jo Boss, is this a legitimate function of government to protect us from the big gulp?
Well, absolutely not. And the good thing is that this really shines the light on what the liberal state would like to do if it was given more power. The problem is when you combine it with Obamacare, where you're paying for other people's health care choices, they are starting to come up with, you know, with a logic and saying, well, if I'm going to pay your health care, you better do what's right.
Okay, now Alex Runner, you used to work for the president of the Milwaukee Common Council. You guys never got around to dealing with the question of big sodas.
We didn't get around to big sodas. Well, you know, I think it's good to let the market work out. I'm probably with these guys on that side of it. I think maybe tax the heck out of it, discourage people from buying it. Although I will add that, you know, Mayor Bloomberg in 2003, he was on the forefront of getting rid of smoking in restaurants. Now that seems pretty widespread. That's here too. So he could be ahead of his time.
Is he ahead of his time?
Is he ahead of time?
We're going to have the government deciding what we can eat and what we can't eat. Because I guess my question is, you know, if you accept the principle that you can ban the sugary soda, why not ban sugary all kinds of stuff? Why do you allow the sale of donuts, for example?
There's no legitimate, logical place to draw the line here. And even the law, and even the regulation they did pass doesn't apply to all sugary drinks.
Right.
You can still go to a 7-Eleven and pick up a soda. That was part of their court case. What this goes to, it speaks to the nanny state and the fact that when you entrust the nanny state with one aspect of regulation of someone's individual life like this, they can spread to any other area if it's actually legitimate regulation, and that's a problem.
Okay, and you know, and Bloomberg's going way off. I'm a public healther, so I have no problem saying that the federal government saying or a state government saying you have to wear motorcycle helmets. Okay. But there is a line drawn in the sand here. His Board of Health, after this announcement by the court, said that what they're going after next are large containers of theater popcorn and drinks that have too much milk. So if you sell a coffee and you put, you know, 5 swigs of milk in it, then you'd have to take that back. They are undeterred. They're going to keep going, and I think it's getting to the point of ridiculous.
Well, even 60% of people in New York said they weren't in favor of it, and I think Dunkin' Donuts was already training in New York people not to give out sugary coffees.
Right.
So.
A 20-ounce soda of Coca-Cola is 200 calories. One Dunkin' Donut, they have 70 different donuts. I checked, and they're all most of them are 400 or 500 calories.
You walk through any neighborhood in New York, and you're going to get at least 10 or 20 foods that are going to have higher calorie content than the big gulp. Okay, so let's compare notes. What did they say this week, and what did you hear, Linda Bruin?
Well, what Paul Ryan said was that he had a balanced budget, and what I read was a budget that completely, exclusively relies on tax reforms that aren't named, throws out revenues he doesn't like, and inserts revenues he doesn't name.
Mary Jo Buss.
Referring to a Marine vet who saved a woman with his gun, West Dallas Police Chief said he stopped the assault, no shots were fired, he was not hurt, she was treated. What I heard was Sheriff David Clark was right.
Alex Runner.
Well, one caveat, this may not have been this week, but what I heard, what Governor Walker said was that the next president of the United States should be a governor, and he should be someone who's been battle tested. What I heard was that should be me.
Brian Sigma.
Well, what Gwen Moore said this week was that she thought that Paul Ryan's budget was amazing because it doesn't begin to balance the budget. And she thought that was a problem. What I heard was Gwen Moore's not been paying attention to Barack Obama for the past 4 years when we've almost doubled the national debt because we haven't balanced a budget.
Well, what I heard was the president saying, don't blame me, I wasn't the one that shut down those White House tours. It was those guys in the Secret Service. What I heard him say, well, that's what he said. What I heard him say was, yeah, it was my decision, and I still have all those calligraphers on the payroll. Next on Sunday Inside, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week. But first, here's your morning news update. It's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Linda Bruin, you're first.
Well, my loser and winner is a mentally ill New Mexico man who was arrested and jailed, but authorities forgot about him for 22 months. His case never went to court. He never got medical care. A fungus grew on his face. He pulled out his own infected tooth. But after successfully suing for $15.5 million, he's smiling again.
Mary Jo Buss.
My winner this week is Mayor Barrett for showing real leadership and putting partisanship aside to work with Governor Walker to promote economic development on Milwaukee's lakefront. The mayor and I often disagree, but this week he showed that good policy is more important than elephants and donkeys. My loser is me. The good people at TurboTax tell me that my effective tax rate is now 500% of what it was when Barack Obama took office.
Alex Runner.
My winner of the week is Milwaukee's entrepreneurial juggernaut Julie Kaufman and her Clock Shadow building in Walker's Point, already winning prestigious awards from LISC. My losers for the week are Wisconsin taxpayers, who will be left holding the bag for $1 billion of highway expansion borrowing.
Brian Sigma.
Well, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas dared to question Senator Dianne Feinstein of California about the constitutionality of her proposed gun ban. Feinstein and her fellow Democrats senators were shocked that Cruz would raise questions about the constitutionality of their actions. For that, Cruz is a winner. State Rep Brett Halsey's actions terrified a female staffer and led to a police report. But liberal Supreme Court candidate Ed Fallone wanted Halsey as a host for a Madison fundraiser. He only canceled after Right Wisconsin exposed the connection. For that, Fallone is a loser this week.
Well, my winner, Congressman Paul Ryan, who, as I mentioned before, proposed a budget that will balance in 10 years. The president says he will get around to proposing a budget that balances pretty much never. Very interesting contrast in leadership. Loser, Carnival Cruise Lines. I mean, seriously, another ship with problems. You know, somehow a floating, overflowing toilet just doesn't say vacation to me. Thanks for joining us in my radio show on Monday morning on News Radio 620 WTMJ from 8:30 until noon. Have a great week.